All right. Well, we are live, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see if this works and everybody can hear me this time. All right. So this is how it is. We very often talk about strategy, and it's a very important topic. It's in fact one of my personal favorites is to talk about strategy and how strategy is the glue between leaders and followers, and how it's important to create vision and purpose and mission statements, and how to set objectives and goals, and why all these things are important for cohesive teamwork, and also for us to move forward as we try and create new things in our world. But what happens when things are going a little out of whack, when we're hit by something and all of a sudden we have to adjust and move quicker, or when things aren't quite working out the way we think, or when we've got strategy down and we're on the right track and things are moving, but now it's time for us to really discuss the intricacies of the tactical maneuver, the teams working to get things done, and each team has to make their own decisions, and team leaders have to make their own decisions that best suit the overall purpose of the organization to hit the objectives and things like that. So, in order for us to do that, one of the things we can do is we can talk about something called OODA Loops. OODA, OODA, was presented by John Boyd. He's a Air Force pilot, and he essentially said that there are 4 steps in a process of decision making that he engages in. And so it goes something like this. He said, "Well, we start out with observing. And when we observe, what we're trying to do is we're trying to bring in as much information as we possibly can from as many different sources as we possibly can. And really, what this is about more than anything is what's called level 3 engagement. We don't want to think, well, just about what am I doing and what do I need to do, but rather, and not even just observe level 2, where it's like seeing what's going on, but really situational awareness and taking that all in and really trying to figure out, how do I observe at this level? Now, you can use something called level 3 engagement as a way to do that. You can say to yourself, I need to engage level 3. And when you do that, what happens is you can start thinking, well, what's the environment? How is the person sitting? What's the tone of voice? What are the facial expressions? How are their hands? Things like that can help you understand what's going on. But more importantly, when you're talking about the overall tactical engagement, the maneuver, what this can do is it can really allow you to take a step back and say, I'm going to take an observatory role. I'm going to remove myself for the moment and try and observe what's going on. Once we've done that, we can start orienting around it. Now, orientation is one of those points where we really want to consider, am I orienting just from my own perspective, or am I capable of bringing in someone else's perspective in order to orient, right? So observe, orient. When I orient, one of the best things I can do for myself in order to make it really easy for me to take myself out of this equation as the leader is to play my own devil's advocate. What would my mentor say about this? What would my leaders say about this? If you're a follower, what would my leader say? What would my teammates say about this? Who's your general devil's advocate? What might they say as like, here's the best way we should deal with this, or here's the response we should have? That orientation can help you really figure this out. And then what happens is you're going to make you're going to create a hypothesis. You're going to decide how you're going to act. Then you're going to test that hypothesis through action. And then you're going to go through this cycle, and you're going to go through this cycle again and again and again. And what happens as we do this is that it essentially creates for us the ability to adapt quickly over time. Now, when Boyd created the OODA loop, observe, orient, decide, act, he wasn't really thinking in these simplistic terms. In fact, if you look at what he was saying overall, what he suggested is that we really need to look at this in terms of the ability to think in feedback loops. So we have observation, right? And when we observe, there's this implicit guidance and control, things you've gotten from your leaders, things people have told you that you need to know, right? But then you've also got things like, well, what are the unfolding circumstances? What's going on? What information is coming in? What interactions are you having with the environment or with the people around you who are helping you to understand what's going on? What's the biases that are taking place? As you observe all this and bring it all in, it's going to allow you to orient. When you orient around it, you're feeding that information forward through a system by which you're going to say, well, you're saying subconsciously, what are my biases? What are my cultural awarenesses? What is the analysis systems that I'm used to using? And you're going to do this relatively quickly, and it's going to allow you to reach a point where you come to some sort of hypothesis. But what's great about this system is that at this moment right here, you can pause should you need to and head back to observations. You've said, hey, I have a hypothesis. And half your team goes, that doesn't work. Wait a second. Well, the decision to act has been made, but you haven't actually done it. Guess what? You can actually engage this again and say, I want to understand what's going on here, and then rethink your orientation before you actually take action. You then create this hypothesis, you've debated the hypothesis, you've come up with some kind of answer, and now there's two more feedback loops you can actually put into play. One comes right before the action. This is where you say, what do I know now? What am I doing now? What's the situation, and what's the best case scenario? And then, of course, the last feedback loop comes when the action has been taken and you get all this new information about what happens. Now, there's a trap here that you have to be very, very careful of, and it's super important. And that trap is something that Annie Duke talks about in Thinking About Bets or Thinking in Bets. She basically says that if you only believe that your actions, that your system, right, this entire thing that you've done here, right, all of this is only if it's good, that's because of me. But if it's bad, that's because of luck, or that's because of circumstances, or because of the environment, or things that are out of my control. You have a problem because you're not allowing yourself to really learn and develop new orientation skills. So what you want to do is you want to get to this point, and on this last feedback loop over here, you really want to engage with the question of what was in my power, what wasn't in my power, was the outcome because of our skill as a team, about what we brought to the table, or was the outcome something that we had no control over? You have to be really, really objective in making that declaration. So here are some tips you can use, right? First is acknowledge what you observe. Acknowledge it. Say it out loud. Hey, I can see that this, and this are happening. I can see that your hands are really clenched. I can see that you're very nervous. I can see that the environment is going a little wonky on us. What can we do about it? Right? Then use others to orient better. The second tip means you really are going to take this time and go, hey, what would someone else say about this? Not just my own orientation and my own immediate thought, but what would my wife say about this? What would my spouse say about this? What would my friends say about this? My boss, my teammates, take your pick. What my kids say about it. That other orientation can help you really understand how to orient better and perhaps give you different perspectives. And then you want to accept the different feedback cycles. You want to actively pursue them even. Hey, I have a hypothesis. Before we take action, do you think this is a good idea? What do people say? How are they engaging and why? If you do this, if you engage in this way, you are going to find that the OODA loop is well within your control. And it allows you to adapt very, very quickly to changing events. It allows you to control the tactical maneuver as you move from one loop to the next in your engagement process. And that's super important because it's going to give you the method to move through the madness. It's going to give you the tools to move through the madness. Now, here's the thing though. There's one last thing I'd like to suggest, and this is a riddle me this moment. How are you going to remind yourself to engage the OODA loop when you're in the middle of your dogfight? When you're in the middle of maneuvering from this and that, and this person wants this from you, and that person wants that from you, and the boss is making requests, and we've got lots of things that are working towards this strategic concept, and I have to have my mind on 3,000 different things at once. Now, there are a lot of things you can do, but one of the easiest things you can do is give yourself some kind of physical reminder. It can be something as simple as a hand movement, or something you put in your pocket that gives you some kind of reminder to engage OODA. To take that moment of really saying, what am I seeing? What am I hearing? How am I engaging? What's the overall picture? And then how do I orient around this? What is it that's dictating, and what kind of biases am I bringing to the table to my understanding of this? So if you do that, then it should help you engage the tactical maneuvers much quicker as you learn to engage OODA better, and you're more likely to hit your strategic goals and objectives much easier as you orient based on these cycles. Thank you very much for listening. So What's some next steps that you can take in terms of our relationship? Well, first and foremost, check out my website. Check it out. Let me know what you think. If you have questions, comments, there's forms there, or you can reach out to me on email and other things. Secondly, show some love, ring the bell, get to know when these are going to come up and other things I post. And last but not least, tune in next time. So if you'd like to reach out to me and contact me, there's a code here. You can use it. Feel free. It's got my contact information, everything you need to have. And I guess I'll see you next time. Bye.